This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so everyone, welcome to today's meeting of the Montachusett MPO for December 18th. I will turn over to Brian to do the roll. Take it away, Brian.
Okay, Steve Wolfel, Mass DOT.
Steve Wolf will represent the Secretary and CEO of MassDOT, Monica Tibbetts-Nutt here.
Ann Sullivan, Mass DOT Highway.
Ann just texted me she lost Wi-Fi, but she or myself will represent Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. Amber Labonte, City of Gardner.
Yes, I'm here.
Wood Robertson, Leominster.
Present.
Glenn Eaton, MRPC.
Here.
And I see Bruno Fisher from Mart.
Here, Brian.
And I see someone, Isabel. I don't know if this is one of our ex officio members from FTA.
Hi, this is Isabel. No, I'm with DOT, but I'm not representing anyone. I'm just wanted to listen to the meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. And Christy Tarandaza from FTA, the ex officio member.
Yes, hi there, everybody.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum.
All right, welcome on, everyone. As I said, we'll move to agenda item 2, public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the MPO today? All right, seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 3, which is a potential approval of the minutes of October 16th. Can I get a motion second to approve, please?
So moved, Bruno.
Second, Glenn.
All right, any questions, comments, changes to the minutes? All right, seeing none. Brian, you want to read the roll?
Stephen Wolfel, Mass DOT.
Yep.
Sarah Bradbury, Mass DOT Highway.
Yes.
Amber Labonte, Gardner. Gordon Robertson, Leominster.
Abstain.
Glenn Eaton, MRPC.
Yes.
And Bruno Fisher, Mart.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We'll move to agenda item 4, which is the Safe Streets for All progress report. Brian, who's handling this?
So we scheduled our consultant WSP to give an update today. I do not see them on the call. It's not something that's time sensitive. We last had an update. And this is for our Safe Streets for All safety action plan that we're working on. We've been working on it over the last year. We were going to just present an update and go over our draft commitment to Vision Zero, which the MPO will have to adopt as part of the process. So I do not see them on the meeting today, but I can go ahead and detail our commitment to Vision Zero. And as I mentioned, we have an action item on the agenda here today. What we were actually planning on doing is presenting this and coming back in January and officially adopting a commitment to Vision Zero. Basically, as part of the program, the region will need to have a formal commitment to the program to be able to access funds for projects. And as I mentioned, our consultant is not on the call today. I did see they signed up, but basically, we came up with 2 versions of this. The first is very common by a lot of agencies and communities that are committing to Vision Zero. It's basically an aspirational statement that fully commits to achieving Vision Zero, which would be 0 road-related fatalities and serious injuries by 2050. Through this program, we would be implementing a number of techniques and projects targeting safety concerns throughout the region to work towards this goal. Mass DOT has a similar goal in their Beyond Mobility Plan, which is their long-range plan, and 2050 is the year given. 2050 is significant also because we anticipate updating our long-range plan for the region, and 2050 would be the sort of sunset year on that plan. We have a more realistic version of this, which staff is recommending, which basically says the same thing. We're committing to Vision Zero, but in this case, a 70% reduction in fatalities and serious injuries by 2050. We see this as more realistic, and also complements the stated plans in Beyond Mobility, Mass DOT's long range plan with a 2050 year tied to this. Also, as part of this process, we identified a number of sort of policy measures that are detailed in this handout. And I won't go over these in detail. These are put together by the Vision Zero Action Committee that have been meeting over the last year, along with MRPC staff and our consultant as well. This is informational right now. I think that the idea was to present this today. Ultimately, it's the MPO that commits to Vision Zero, and again, this is a requirement of the program. We just felt the need to kind of provide this information well before we actually needed to commit to it, just in case there's additional discussion or concerns. So again, I can attempt to answer any questions that anyone may have. And the plan is to just kind of put this out here and come back in January and officially commit.
All right. So does anyone have any questions for Brian today? Or obviously we'll have an opportunity, as Brian said, in January when everyone has a chance to look at this probably more fully. This time for questions there. But anyone have any questions for Brian right now today?
And I will mention that I do actually see now Bruce and Nate from WSP here. So thank you, Bruce and Nate. I didn't see you earlier, so I kind of got into it a little bit, gave an introduction to Vision Zero and reviewed the policy a little bit. But if you'd like, I could give you control, or I also have your presentation up as well. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think we may have had some trouble with this when I presented at the June meeting, but I'm more than willing to try and drive. If you want to give us control, sure. Let's try.
Okay, you should be good to go.
All right. That looks like I've got a green bar. And do folks see a PowerPoint presentation?
Looks good.
Oh, look at that. So Bruce, as our project manager, I know I'm going to take the first couple of slides, but I think you should go ahead and just introduce, since you weren't at the last one of these.
Hi, I'm Bruce Kaplan. Sorry, I was not able to make the last meeting. Yeah, I am the project manager at WSP for this project, working with MRPC staff and MART staff on helping to produce this, and we are making great progress, and we're just kind of here. We wanted to give you an update since I can't remember if it was July or June.
June 20th.
I believe I was on a plane during the call, so I couldn't make it. But just wanted to let you know what's going on, and then I know that Brian has somewhat reviewed the Vision Zero stuff. We had planned on talking about that later on, and you may see a little bit of that, but I guess we can open it up for a little bit of further questions if you have any.
Makes sense.
Okay.
And for those of you who may remember me from the last time we appeared before you folks, I'm Nathaniel Curtis. I run public outreach for WSP here in Massachusetts. Obviously, that is a very important part of this process, wanting to make sure that everybody gets buy-in. We have been extremely well supported, not in both the outreach and other regards by MRPC staff, particularly George and Brian, who've really been with us kind of every step of the way. So I think collectively between them as our client and us as consultants, we feel as though we have a very solid product, as Bruce says. And I'm glad to be able to share some of this with you today. So I think we've kind of covered the introductions. Not knowing exactly who was going to be here today and whether you had been to some of the earlier discussions or participated in some of the public meetings, very briefly about what Safe Streets and Vision Zero is, talk about what we expect to have come out of this. Really, I would say the guts of the presentation are points 4, 5, and 6, and then of course giving you some time for Q&A. So, just to remind everybody, who are the players in this? MRPC and MART, they're really the leaders of this. They manage us. They own this plan when it's complete. There is a thing called the Vision Zero Action Committee, or VZAC. Without being able to see the screen, all I see right now is PowerPoint, but there may be members of this group that are actually VZAC members as well. I know there's some overlap, but those are folks drawn from local organizations, local communities, and they're really there to inform the planning process with their knowledge. We work through the detail with them. We've met with them at least once, twice. Since June. Yeah. We've met with them at least once since June, and periodically, they get an update, typically before we go to the public, to make sure that we're not going out with anything, that will be sort of received acidically. The consultant team, right? We support the planning process. We prepare documents like this. We're responsible for the final report. And then, the community is certainly a big part of this. They share their lived experience with us, and they give all of us a reality check to make sure that we're not letting our models run away with us. So, what is Safe Routes for All? It's funded through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill. There's sort of 3 separate funding programs. You're in this sort of first step, generating this plan. You can go back for later rounds of funding for supplemental planning and demonstration grants. And then, of course, there's implementation, which is kind of what we're really focused on, which is to generate some safety projects for your region. USDOT also focuses on some secondary benefits with this. Equity is an important component of it, multimodal mobility, and addressing climate change. So again, this is a very high-level version of this, and we can always go back, but I just wanted to give people, especially those who might be new to this, something to hang their hats on. So really our goal here is to address the safety problems in the area through a data-driven process that brings in people's lived experience, looks at equity, and we're going to talk about how we've done that in just a few minutes. What are the best practices from around the country? What are the environmental constraints and sustainability needs of your region, and economic development concerns? Again, these SS4A projects, they're going on all over the country. But our goal is to really make sure that whatever we produce for the MRPC region reflects that region's needs, wants, desires, and preferences. Again, we're looking to identify investments for future funding and to make targeted investments that reduce fatal and serious crashes, lower the crash rate, and again, target spending towards communities which may historically not have benefited from that kind of investment. At this point, I've got a few more slides, I think, before I turn it over. So since January 20th, which is the last time we saw you, we have completed the literature review for the final report. That's effectively a benchmarking study to look at what other communities and MPOs have done. Our planners have gone through a great many numbers to generate a detailed crash history, our equity analysis, the high injury network, the high risk network. All of those pieces feed into that last thing, which is the prioritization network, which is the tool that allows us to begin determining when we can, or where rather, we would want to make these targeted investments. We last met with the VZAC at the beginning of October. There was another heavy public awareness campaign with lots of flyers distributed, tabling events at some really lovely, activities during the fall when the weather was still quite nice. And we kind of wrapped all that in at a second public information meeting just before Halloween. So, where we are in our process, right? All the analysis that we've been doing to date has been building to this point. We really have a solid grasp of the study area conditions. We have the tools that we need to begin targeting areas for improvements and projects. And one of the things that we will sort of be starting to do now, one of the hard things about these SS4A efforts is at the beginning, if it's regional as yours is, it's hard to kind of get people to really think about it because it's kind of, more safety, good. But when you start to kind of drill down into the individual communities and say, where might we put projects? That's when we can really sort of start to engage people and say, hey, that intersection, the one that you hate over there that you told me about in our survey, 6 months ago, well, here's our approach to it. I think at this point it's you. So
Okay,
take it away.
Sure. Thanks again, Nate. So again, as Nate had previously mentioned, we more or less wrapped up our literature review, looking at plans from different parts of the countries, and we kind of aligned, this study to look like a lot of the study, to kind of pull the best sorts of stuff out of this, while at the same time, that's that second sub bullet under the second big bullet. This is going to be contextual for the MRPC region. It's not a one size fits all. We're going to be looking at, excuse me, we're going to be looking at, various things, even within a single community. We know that geography, you can't implement the same thing in one part of Fitchburg than you can in another, shall we say, because of population density. I mean, the same issues are, different. You wouldn't treat, a school safety project, improving safety in a school district the way you would on, I don't know, a county road, for example. One that's, kind of on a main street. There are different sort of tools and techniques. Again, we use the methodology from these other plans kind of to develop our higher injury network, to kind of come, look at some equity analyses, which we're going to get into in a sec, and to kind of engage the public on how to measure the success, because ultimately that's what we're going to do. So we can go to the next. Okay, so as you might recall, we probably presented a version of this the last time. What we're looking at in our study, this is for the past 5 years, across the region, fatal and serious injury crashes on non-highways, and that's a key and important thing because that's the kind of the terms of this grant. This grant is about looking at these types of injuries. Again, it's not every sort of crash that's occurring. It's just ones that are labeled fatal, fatalities, or serious injury, and they're not. So it's not occurring on Route 2 or 190 here. Obviously, that's going to be slightly different. As you can see, we've kind of located them in just about every town. If you go to the next slide, we can give you a little more details. Again, almost 500 crashes over that period, the bulk of which, of course, involve passenger vehicles. The bulk of which of those are vehicle on vehicle. Again, where it's a single vehicle being involved, you can see in the lower right, there's, where it struck a tree, where it hit a fixed object, or it unfortunately hit a pedestrian. Now, again, this is not every crash. These are just the serious injury and fatality ones. There is a significant amount of these crashes that involve non-vehicle drivers, as you see, motorcycle and moped, cyclists and pedestrians. There's the kind of influence stuff that you see, 12% driving under the influence and 10% using, due to distracted driving, as we call it these days. And the majority of the crashes are happening on corridors. They're not at the intersections of these types of crashes. And typically, you're talking about like undivided two-way roads, usually one lane on each side. The 40% that happen at the intersections of these fatalities and serious injuries, it's typically uncontrolled, or it's a stop control. It may not be necessarily signal control, but it's stop control. So those are kind of the things. So if we move on to our next slide, this is when we're beginning to talk about equity. Now we're kind of getting ahead because I'm going to talk about the high injury network in a couple of slides. But basically, what we're looking at here is where are the equity regions and how do they map over the areas that we identify as having propensity for high injuries, shall we say. And as you can see in the blue there, there's the lighter blue is kind of the top 40%, excuse me, top 20, that's 40, and then the dark blue is the top 20, the real peak. And what you're seeing here is again, these the quote equity categories were taken from a lot of the federal guidance as well as the state guidance. You're looking at things like household income and access to vehicle and minority status, as well as other indicators, shall we say. But when we spoke with MRPC, as you can see the kind of circle things, we had some other things that were identified. They said, yeah, we should look at, such as a refugee or a migrant facility in the area, veterans in the area, as well as public health issues. There is data that's out there that we mine that says, okay, in this area, this is, has a higher than average rate of diabetes or asthma or other sorts of indicators where this is a, something moving towards an environmental justice community, as it were. But yeah, we can kind of call that, but we just wanted to kind of show you that, look, not surprisingly, a lot of the, equity areas have a lot of the kind of darker colors there, thus indicating that there's injuries on them. So moving on to the next. So again, we're jumping ahead and then going to go backwards. So what we're talking about here is there are two tools that we're using to develop the third tool. One of them is the high risk network. And what this is basically a model. And the way to kind of think about this is it's predicting towards the future. And we looked at all those maps with the circles and the dots and on the various roadways, and we said, okay, what are the characteristics in those areas that are experiencing all these KSI crashes? And we came up with various rating systems. Again, you can see the number of lanes effects and the speed limits. And then what we did, as you can see, it adds up to 10 points. And then as you can see, if we move to the next one, what we're looking at here is this is where, if we are going to take those characteristics that we know today, contribute to KSI crashes, this is where they will end up, or this is kind of, these are the other roadways that they will occur on. And again, this doesn't necessarily map to where they exist today, but because some of these areas, perhaps if you look up in Winchendon, you can kind of see, oh, there's some color up there. And well, there may not have been a whole lot of, shall we say, crashes currently on there that we've looked at in the last 5 years, but goodness golly, those roadways have characteristics that, perhaps could cause or contribute to having in the future a lot of a high rate of those sort of crashes. Now, we go to the next slide. The other thing is this is the higher injury network. What we're looking at here is, okay, we kind of came up with different ways of normalizing data and what have you with the various crashes to see, okay, where are the segments that have kind of the highest percentage of crashes. And see, we did it for every town. This is on a town basis as opposed to on a regional basis and coming up. And as you can see, the darker ones are this. So if you think of the high risk network as kind of the predicting thing into the future and what maybe, this is actual like, okay, we looked at the data and this is kind of the model that we came up with to kind of represent that. Both of these then go into what we're coming up with a prioritization. As you can see, high injury, the HIN is on the left, high risk. And what we're doing is this is kind of a blending together. And we're going to try to see like, okay, where are the highest priorities when we kind of mix both of these together. We can show you the initial stuff that we came up with on the next slide. Again, this is kind of a work in progress. And this is where we think, based on those two networks and when we're putting them together, where we think, the segments of roadways that are most deserving based on the crash history and those other models are located. And again, they're I don't want to say, you could probably, as residents of the region, this probably is no surprise to you where these are located. And we are going to further refine this as we move forward into the future. Because again, this is just the initial thing, and this is kind of okay, this is on the regional level. Now we're gonna, I know Nate's gonna explain what we're gonna do next, but we, in order to kind of move forward towards pilot projects perhaps and implementation and actually, getting stuff out there on the ground, we need to drill down and really kind of look at, the dark sort of areas on the map and say, okay, what can we do here? And by doing that means talking to people. So, and this is also another thing. So we also looked at where the sort of the historically, or at least in the last 5 years and in the next 5 years, where are the projects that are happening? Where are they occurring? Whether it's in your tip that you guys produce or kind of MassDOT sort of projects on these. And as you can see, there's an awful lot on a lot of these roads in certain corridors. Now, we know that those areas are already, a bunch of that has already occurred. So again, our approach is we're looking at that, and I don't want to say we're going to look at it and see, oh, maybe this is covered already. When we go from town to town, maybe we look somewhere else. But this also helps inform us as to what's out there, what's recently been done or is planned to be done. We don't want to duplicate efforts. We don't want to, I don't want to say step on anybody else's toes, whether it's, and again, this is kind of what we know about the TIP projects and from MassDOT, but we're going to have to meet with the local folks and see what they have in the, been cooking up and have done recently. Because again, the last thing someone wants to do is for us to say, oh yeah, dig that up, thing that you just put in, because we have a better idea. That's not our goal here. If safety stuff, has been put in, we understand that. We will, there's, I hate to say, sadly, there's enough areas of critical concern when you look at this map, that we have to deal with. So we will, again, our mission is to, make things safer. So we will do that. We will try. So next, I think it's you, Nate.
Yep. And, I think, as folks think about all those maps and, our time with you is brief, and there's, I was saying to folks the other day, this is not a trip to the sausage factory. This is a trip to the grocery store to pick up a pack of hot dogs. There's tons and tons behind this. So if people have questions, obviously we'll answer them today if we can, or funnel them to us through George or Brian. We're happy to write things up and get back to you. But I think
and show you other graphics and more detailed graphics and more specific. You have those.
But for my money as the public involvement guy, what I find very heartening about the retrospective map, and then the predictive map, and then the priority map, while they vary a little bit as to where, where's the worst, crash history with red, or where's a slightly better prediction with yellow, they all more or less align with each other. We're not seeing like, hey, one map's showing us something that's wildly different than the other. So that's good. That I think gives us a feeling of comfort. So, right now, what are we doing? We're refining that prioritization network. As Bruce said, our goal is not to go try and concoct a project for a spot where either a town or MassDOT has one in the works, or to come up with a project for a space that has just been redone. We've spoken a bit with, obviously, MRPC leadership in presenting this. We'll next be going to study area municipal planners and DPW directors, as well as any of you that wish to make a contribution in this regard to say, like, as we refine this prioritization network and focus in on where we should make our investments, where should we be going? We have several communities in our study area which are not technically part of the MRPC region, but they are served by MART. So we are going to do a bit of analysis for them as well, mapping those killed or serious injury, KSI crashes. And really the goal there would be to sort of, through MRPC, to turn those over to the MPO with jurisdiction and say, we found these. here's an issue that we've spotted, do with it what you will, but it is part of our, the grant that funds this to do that work. So we'll be working on that in January as the planners that generated all the maps you just saw kind of shift off of that assignment. Again, the first quarter of 2021, we're going to complete that prioritization network. Our technical assessments will turn towards projects and then countermeasures. And when we say countermeasures, that specifically means things that you might physically do in the world, right? Does this intersection need to have curbs bumped out? Do we have an intersection where a road comes in at an oblique angle that needs to be teed up? This is where we get to be sort of municipally oriented. What have these towns done for projects? What do they want for projects? Do they have capacity to seek grant funding on their own? During the survey, now 6 months ago, we received a comment from one of the smaller towns saying, you realize, our municipal staff are like part-time 3 days a week. We can't go looking for money on our own. We don't have the capacity. So how can MRPC support the small towns that have limited capacity to seek funds? And, we still have some time to go here. I won't read through every single bullet point because I want to get to, the stuff about the Vision Zero statement. But as you can see, as this lays out over the next, basically at this point, 9 months, getting to that bolded note under September, MPO meeting vote to adopt the plan. We will continue to meet with communities. We'll continue to meet with the VSAC. We will go back in front of the public again in the spring. We have we've gone a long way, and we still have plenty to do. But again, we're feeling good about where we are with this. So I think you should talk about the Vision Zero policy.
Sure.
So let me jump in for a second, Nate, please. So Brian,
Sure.
we're going to take up the vision statement next month, correct?
Yes, that's a plan. We have a draft available, just for people to view it and have it in mind. And we're in no rush to endorse it or accept it. We have time to do that, so we're thinking January that'd be fine to do.
So I'm just worried about, we have a number of voting items still to go, and I'm worried we've run a little long on this. So I don't know, Brian, if you want to take a minute or two on this, or do you want to wait till January? Just because I want to make sure that we have a quorum for all the voting stuff we have to get through.
Sure. Yep. And Nate and Bruce, thank you. Before you were on, I did detail our Vision Zero commitment. We have a handout. I mentioned staff suggestion to support the Vision Zero policy, which we go after the 70% commitment to Vision Zero, which is detailed in the handout in the folder. So, and I think the plan was to come back in January and officially accept this. So I think that's appropriate. With that being said, if there's any questions on our program with Safe Streets, please reach out to myself or George, or as Nate and Bruce mentioned, them as well, and we can work together to try to figure it out. I will mention also really quick that we're transitioning from the data-heavy kind of organization of this whole process to ultimately working with communities to get actual projects done. So that's something to keep in mind.
So does anyone have any questions real quick for either Bruce or Nate on the progress report? All right, seeing none, as Brian said, any questions you have, get them to him and George, and they'll send it to Bruce and Nate. Thank you, guys, and we'll look forward to talking about this again in January. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is TIP 25 to Federal Fiscal Year 25 to 29 TIP amendment. I think it's number 1. Brian, you want to take it away?
Have a good one, folks. We'll see you. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yep, if you remember last time we met, October 30th, we released amendment number 1 for public comment period. This occurs on the current TIP and Federal Fiscal Year 25 on the transit side. Essentially, MART is requesting to move funds from a previous grant, along with providing a local match from them, to the line item highlighted at the top of this handout here. Basically, this goes from $700,000 to $1.4 million to allow the purchase of two 30-foot replacement buses instead of one. So the comment period began November 26th. It ended yesterday, December 17th. We did not receive any public comments. However, we did, as we typically do, review this with the JTC at last week's meeting. They did recommend endorsement. However, it was not unanimous. There was some discussion regarding allocation of funds for additional equipment and buses in light of a couple safety events over the last few months involving MART buses. So there was some discussion among a number of members who voiced their concern, but ultimately the decision was made to recommend MPO endorsement. MPO staff also recommends endorsement of amendment number 1. So outside of that, that is the update I have for today. The public comment period ended yesterday. What we're looking for is a motion to endorse amendment number 1 to the 2020.
All right, thank you, Brian. Can I get a motion and a second to endorse tip amendment number 1?
So moved, Dan Sullivan.
Is there a second?
Seconded, Bruno. Fisher.
Thanks, Bruno.
All right, any questions for Brian? All right, seeing none, Brian, you want to read the roll?
Stephen Wolfo, Mass DOT.
Yes.
Sarah Bradbury, Mass DOT Highway.
Yes, Anne's back on too.
Oh, okay, thank you. And now I see Liz Murphy from Fitchburg.
Yes.
Amber Labonte, Gardner. Amber? Okay, can circle back around. Gordon Robertson, Leominster.
Yes.
Glenn Eaton, MRPC.
Yes.
Bruno Fisher, Mart.
Yes.
And I'll try one more time. Amber Labonte, Gardner. Okay, that still carries. We do have still a quorum, and that carries. Thank you.
She's muted. This is why.
Okay, sent her an unmute request. Amber, can you hear me? Okay. It still carries, so thank you. Amendment number 1 was endorsed. Steve, you're muted now.
We have a holiday party going on, so that's why I'm trying. I always forget to unmute myself. But anyways, we're on to agenda item 6, UPWP and tip update memos. Brian, it's either you or Sherry or both, so you guys should take it away.
Yep. Okay. So every year around this time, we send out these memos just indicating we're starting the process of updating our transportation improvement program and also our unified planning work program. And I'll start with the tip. I know we're all familiar with the tip. Basically, it's a listing of all federal funds spent in the region on the transportation sector. The MPO, we as an MPO are responsible for putting this document together. So as you remember, we do a lot of reviewing of projects throughout the spring, which will begin the process of updating what will be the 2026 through 2030, believe it or not, transportation improvement program. So here's a tentative schedule, which is similar to what we've seen in the last few years. We've managed to stay on track. It's worked out well for us. This gives you an indication of what we'll be discussing each month. As of right now, staff will begin to get updates on projects, status updates on design, cost updates, funding allocation, that type of thing throughout the next several weeks in the next few months. Really, we'll kick this off with the MPO in January. We'll review all the projects in detail. Come February, we'll have some additional information. We'll have details on project statuses. We'll begin to discuss evaluation criteria and project scoring. In March, we begin to discuss scenarios. If you may remember, MPO has full discretion on project placement within a certain section of the TIP on the highway side called the target section. So we'll be discussing scenarios in March. That'll all be informed by the information that we get in February and March as well. The ultimate goal is to have a full draft available for MPO review in April, at which point we will hopefully release that for a 21-day public comment period, come back in May and endorse. This is how it's worked out in the last few years. We anticipate the same schedule this year. That being said, it's important to mention if you do have a project in your community on the TIP, we recommend getting updates from your design consultants, relaying that information to MRPC staff and also Mass DOT district staff as well. We're trying to chase down information right now. I've heard from a number of communities and project proponents in the last month or so about project updates. Very helpful. It really helps us make informed decisions when it comes to project placement. Also, this is a standing invitation to the MPO. If you have a project you'd like to go over and present to the MPO, there's a standing invitation to do so. If you want to reach out to me, I can put you on an agenda. In years past, we've done this in January and February. As we discuss the updated TIP, all the material is sort of relevant at that point, but it's a standing invitation any time of year. Any questions on the TIP? Okay, I can move forward to the Unified Planning Work Program. Before I do that, I did put in the handouts what is our current TIP list, so I won't go over this in detail. Do this next month, but this is just for informational purposes. Okay, the Unified Planning Work Program, this kind of follows the same schedule as the TIP. We'll be reviewing material throughout the spring. As a reminder, this is basically MPO staff's work program for our main contract, which is a joint contract between MRPC and Mass DOT and Federal Highway Administration and FTA, Federal Transit Administration. Through this program, we carry all the federally required documentation and plans that we do through the MPO, like the TIP, like the Long Range Regional Transportation Plan, among others. Also, as in years past, we anticipate having room in our budget to solicit communities for project proposals, which is really what this memo is about. We have some examples of some of the studies we've undertaken in past years: intersection studies, trail planning, corridor analysis. Most recently we looked at some freight issues in various communities. Basically, any project that a community thinks they need in terms of the transportation network, we would consider. We just ask that you make your proposals by February 7th. If you'd like to talk about that, give either myself or Sherry a call. Sherry Bean is the point person for this at MRPC. So her contact information is there, but of course, reach out to us at any time if you have any questions. And that's all I have for TIP and UPWP.
All right, anyone have any questions for Brian or Sherry? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the public participation plan. I believe, Brian, you're handling this too?
Yep. So the public participation plan, or PPP, basically this is our official procedures for public outreach. This is another federally required document for an MPO. Last we updated this was 2017. So before the pandemic, basically we never met remotely before the pandemic. So a number of things have changed. So we've reflected that in our draft update. And this, we're recommending to release this for a 45-day public comment period starting today, which is required of this plan. We do have a summary of the changes which we've made here. Basically, very minor changes we made. Of course, we keep basically the same goals and principles. They're all substantially the same. As I mentioned, a number of things that came up, via the pandemic, remote meeting, and everything like that. We felt the need to document that type of thing within the plan. We've gotten rid of some repetitive language, updated some policy and legislation references within the plan, and made some changes to some of the language and organization of the document as a whole. Really no significant changes, just an update to reflect kind of how we operate in a post-pandemic world. Again, we'd like to make this available for a 45-day public review and comment period, and that is what we are seeking a motion on today.
All right, any questions for Brian? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to release the public participation plan out for public review, a 45-day public comment period?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
Bruno has to step out. I will make a motion to accept it.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second Ann Sullivan.
All right, last chance. Any questions for Brian? All right, so please review this while this goes out, assuming the vote will be positive. Brian, you want to read the roll, please?
Steve Wolfel, Mass DOT.
Yes.
Ann Sullivan, Mass DOT Highway.
Yes.
Liz Murphy, Fitchburg.
Yes.
Amber Labonte, Gardner. Gordon Robinson, Leominster.
Yes.
Glenn Eaton, MRPC.
Yes.
And George Kahali, Mart.
Yes.
Okay, still nothing from Amber. I'll consider that. We still have 6 signatories voting yes, so that does
You can
pass.
also just do a thumbs up or thumbs down, Brian, if we need. If she wants to. I don't know if she's on or anyone's
I
talking.
haven't heard from her. I did message her.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'll keep my eyes on it.
All right, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 8, which is the Montachusett MPO logo and letterhead. Brian?
Yes. Okay, so it's common practice for Metropolitan Planning Organization to have a logo and a letterhead. Every MPO that we come across has one, including everyone in the state, Massachusetts. So currently we do not have one, so we felt the need to make one. This really came about because over the last few months, going back to the summer, we made MPO comments on a few different plans. The Northern Tier Passenger Rail study being one, the Route 2 study being one. We've sent out letters regarding support and grants from the MPO. We don't have a letterhead. We've used MRPC letterhead, closely related to MRPC. To explain it a little bit, MRPC provides the staff to the MPO. So the transportation staff at Montachusett Regional Planning Commission, who is employed by the Regional Planning Commission, is staff to the MPO. But when we submit a plan or do a federally required document like the TIP, it's the responsibility of the MPO, and the MPO are the ones who are endorsing these things. So we really need a letterhead. So we've come up with this. We're looking for approval. Here's a sample of the letterhead itself and the logo. So we'd like to get the blessing of the group to adopt this as our logo.
Does anyone have any questions first? Brian, do you want actually a roll call vote or just a general consensus?
I think a consensus would be fine.
Does anyone have any problems with the proposed logo and letterhead?
No, it looks very nice.
Yep.
It looks like buffalo.
I don't think we want that, George. Unless you're sending money to Buffalo. No, I'm just kidding. So does anyone have any issues with the logo and letterhead? All right, Brian, it looks like no one has an issue, so I think you can assume it's fine.
Great. You'll start to see this soon. Thank you.
All right, so we're on to the next agenda item, which is updates. I believe the first one is from Highway Division. Is anyone here from District 2?
Yes, this is Tom Ruda from District 2.
Hi, Tom.
I'm sitting in today. Daryl has a family emergency this morning. Normally he would be here to give you his updates. I do have his notes. Okay. First, for fiscal 25, we have no projects on the tip for fiscal 25. In fiscal 26, we have one non-targeted project. This is 612151 Athol Bridge Replacement, Route 2A / Main Street over the G&W Railroad. The design status is at pre-25%. The railroad agreement, the master service agreement, was recently signed and put into effect, so we can now get onto the railroad property and do the preliminary measurements and testing. The next milestone is the bridge type selection worksheet. We're expecting it to be submitted later this month, unlikely though, and probably won't see it until after the holidays. But that was per the designer's schedule at the end of the last month. The designer is Beta Group. Next, for fiscal 27, we have two targeted projects. The first one is 608415. Again, this is in Athol. This is intersection improvements at Route 2A at Brookside Road. We're looking at building a roundabout in that location. The design status is also pre-25%. Next up is the hydraulic data being updated and being prepared for the bridge type selection worksheet. Why, you may wonder, do we need hydraulic data for a intersection? This is because the project includes replacing a culvert with a bridge approximately 3/4 of a mile to the west of this intersection. The next milestone is the bridge type selection worksheet, and it was due at the end of November, but we're expecting it again early January because of the additional data required for the hydraulic design. The designer is Niche Engineering. Next, in fiscal 27, we also have project 608424. This is in Templeton, reconstruction of Route 68 from the King Phillips Trail, actually Route 202, northerly to the Phillipston Town line, 2.5 miles plus. It's at the 75% design stage. And let's see, the next milestone is, well, actually, we're waiting for a revised schedule, and we're looking for an NTP for additional design work for the designer Fussin O'Neill. There are additional environmental and structural issues that were designed in the preliminary phases that needed to be added to the scope of work, so we are adding that in. That is all I have for fiscal 25, 6, and 27. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Tom? All right, seeing none, thank you, Tom. Ann, want to go next?
Very good, thank you.
Sure. So I'll do the 25 projects. They're all District 3. The first one is Leominster, Route 12, Central Street. That is project number 604499. That has been advertised. The NTP was issued to J.H. Lynch on December 5th. That's a seed over a couple of years. Harvard Air Road from Route 2 to Air Town Line, that's 609213. That is at 75%. 100% are due January 31st. The right of way on that one will be tight, and I think the MPO is aware of that. Hubbardston Bridge Replacement, Williamsville Road over the Burnshirt River, 609187. That is at 100%. The PS&E is due today. I'm not sure if it came in yet, but due today. Still needs right-of-way and environmental permitting. Sterling stormwater drainage improvements at Wachusett Reservoir on Route 110, 610659. That is at PSNE. The right-of-way cert has been issued. We're waiting on 2 environmental permits for work in water, 401 and 404. They've both been filed. Gardner, Elm Street, resurfacing and sidewalk improvements under our Safe Routes to School program, 610672. That is at PSNE, and we are just waiting on right-of-way for that one. And then the final one is Fitchburg Leominster Twin City Rail Trail. That project is also AC. The NTP was issued to ET&L on December 10th. And that's it for 2025.
All right, anyone have any questions for Ann? Thanks, Ann.
Yep.
All right, the next update is from Mart. George, go ahead.
Yes, I have just one update. Mart, last year we received a grant, innovation community connection, and under that grant, we launched several new bus route pilot programs to connect Winchendon and Ashburnham with Gardner, and Gardner with the hospital and shopping center. And also we ran Ashburnham, Fitchburg route to connect with Fitchburg downtown. And also we ran Gardner, Westminster to connect with the shopping center and the hospital and migrant facilities and the elderly and also everybody. Also, we are running a new bus route service in Fitchburg and Leominster, which we called Fitchburg Leominster Express. It goes from downtown to downtown without any deviation. All these bus routes, they are working very well, except one, the Ashburnham, Fitchburg, and we decide to discontinue in the end of this week. We ran it for over a month, and there were really no riders. For the lack of ridership, we decide to discontinue this bus route. This is what I have for today. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Anyone have any questions for George? All right, seeing none, thanks, George. Brian, next one, updates from JTC. Brian, got anything?
Yep, JTC met last week. Next meeting is on January 8th at 2:30 remotely. We'll be basically reviewing the same TIP and UPWP items as the MPO does, and we'll seek their recommendation on a number of different things. I do have a few handouts as well. The first is a invitation to our planned subregion election caucus. So in an effort to re-engage membership in the subregion and get some more signatories here, we're going to be holding a caucus Thursday, February 6th at 5 o'clock at MRPC offices in Leominster. We'll push this out to the communities. Basically, this is an effort to re-engage people, get together, meet each other in person. It'll be relatively informal. We'll go over some of the MPO process, the importance of the group, and determine who will be representing each subregion with alternates. So we're really looking forward to getting people together for this. The next is a handout from Mass DOT on a virtual public meeting tonight regarding the vulnerable road user systemic safety projects. We detailed one of these in our region in Templeton in October. basically, MassDOT's been looking into locations at bus stops to implement easy safety measures, things like crosswalk striping and bump outs, curb extensions, signage, that type of thing. There's a virtual public meeting tonight at 6 o'clock, and the link is available in the handout. Last I have is from the Division of Ecological Restoration. DER is again beginning the process of accepting culvert replacement project inquiries. They're scheduling calls with interested communities. So if you have a potential project or you have questions about an existing project, they're asking to schedule a call before January 10th. Again, the information is on the handout. That is all I have.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone have any questions for Brian? All right, the last updates from the RPC. Glenn, you got anything?
Sure, Steve, very quickly. Thank you. The annual call for proposals for district local technical assistance went out yesterday by email. It's going to go tomorrow by snail mail to all of our 22 communities. Free grant writing and non-transportation planning projects are eligible. That's the gist of it. It's basically in the planning boards and select boards and town administrators' email boxes right now. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Glenn? Thanks, Glenn. All right, we're on to next agenda item, which is 10, which is administrative matters. Our next meeting will be 1 o'clock Wednesday, January 15th. So try to make it. Brian, anything else before I call for adjournment?
That's it. Thank you, everyone.
All right, can I get a motion second to adjourn?
So moved, Dan.
George, say second.
Second.
All right.
Happy holiday. Happy holiday.
And a safe holidays, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.